Another week and another Mercer. Well, not another Mercer. It's the same Mercer, Dave Mercer, your host, every single week, because that's all that's left. I mean, everyone else has left the building. It's just me and you, but I appreciate you for being here. A very special week. Here, this our 8th episode. Welcome to M8, the number one rated fishing podcast on this particular channel. I thank you all for allowing us to become that. This is a big week for our humpers. A very special hump day. Why? Because last week was May 2-4 or Victoria Day in Canada, and this upcoming week is Memorial Day in the United States of America. So it's an extra short week for almost everybody. So it's an extra special hump day. And to celebrate that, we've got you an extra special guest. That's right. We don't have a bunch of guests this week. We've got one, the one and only Mike Iaconelli. That's right. I told you to never give up on this show. We will bring you inspirational quotes like that and great guests like Ike. So without further ado, one of the most polarizing characters in this entire sport, the amazing Mike Iaconelli.
I'm Bob Cobb from the Bassmaster. Welcome to Mercer.
Welcome to Mercer, another week and another podcast. And moment of total honesty, I just got back from the Elite Series event down in Alabama on Lake Guntersville. And while I was away, summer arrived in Canada. So it is sweltering hot in our little studio here. So if you see me wiping my brow, or if our listeners... Our streaming listeners, thank you. Please give us a review while you're streaming and sub and do all that stuff so we can keep doing this. If you hear me wiping my brow, that is why. Because, let's be honest. I don't need another reason to sweat. And I've got one here today. But yeah, just got back from Alabama. Big week on Lake Guntersville. Giant week for Caleb Kufall. Giant. I mean, one of the most bizarre Elite Series events I've ever covered, to be honest. Just simply because I don't get it. I mean, generally a blowout like what he did, you know. I mean, to lead wire to wire is one thing. That happens. But to do it and to not be doing anything that different than anybody else is unseen. You know what I mean? He literally just caught bigger fish than everybody else. He outfished the field. And it's so rare. You know, generally when you think of Patrick Walters last year on Lake Fork, what he did, he was a cutting edge technique doing something different. All sorts of, you know, you look at all those blowouts. Usually there is a key or an answer. Here's why it was a blowout. Not this week. He just outfished everybody, and he did it while wearing cargo shorts and Crocs. And, man, he went from sleeping in the back of his truck to he got a hotel that very night. I saw him on BTL with Panger and Mark, and they told him to go to Wenzel's, so pick up a girl there. We'll see how that all worked out. It'll be my first question, actually, at the next tournament. So congratulations to him. Really, really cool. Just a cool, good person, really. Not the only Caleb to have a big event, really. Actually, Caleb Sumrall won Big Bass, Phoenix Boats Big Bass Award. But outside of that, he had a cool moment that nobody got to see, and I'll let you guys in on. And for those of you that aren't parents, this won't impact you, but one day when you are parents, you'll think back to this story and you'll realize it. It's the little things in life that matter. It's those little tiny moments. So it was Caleb's birthday on day one of the tournament. Him and Corey Johnston both had a birthday that day. And cool thing is Corey's kids are locked in Canada, so they probably totally would have done it. Actually, his wife was trying to get in touch with me to get a cake, but I didn't get back to her, and I'm a total jerk. Sorry. Caleb's kids went walking down the dock, and they showed up with these helium balloons with his wife, and Caleb's kids are super cute. I mean, they're like little models, and they're running down the dock, and they're, oh, daddy, and they've got these balloons. And so as they go to hand him the balloons, I believe his son, Axel, which is an awesome name, went to hand it to him, and the balloon flipped out of his hand. So it starts to do the float. You know, everybody sees it. Every time you see a floating balloon, you know there's a kid below it crying somewhere. Caleb pounces and catches the balloon midair as it's just about to leave our district and gives it back to his kid. Now, I'm sure that didn't mean any, to the kid. That was cool and whatever, and it happened quickly. But all I couldn't stop thinking about, think of how scarred the kid would be. Remember that time we carried the balloon down to Daddy and I dropped it and it went up to the sky? And so I just thought it was a super cool moment. Another cool moment is Carl Jacobson had a big finish this week. Friend of the show, of course. He was on just a few weeks ago, as well as Caleb. Well, the second Caleb, not the first Caleb, but we'll get him on too at some point eventually. I mean, we don't have rules. We'd like to have everyone on eventually. So Carl Jacobson and his wife, Kayla, he got a great finish. Good for him. That was awesome, and he needs it and keep it going. Everybody wants him to keep catching them, and I think he will catch him in the next few for sure. But a great finish, and most people would think you'd go home, and he's in Tennessee. It doesn't take him long to get home. Stayed at the event and went and cleaned up trash off the rip wrap. You see, this is why I don't shoot shows at night. Went to clean garbage off the riprap and basically, 10 bags of garbage or something like that the day after, he was eliminated from the tournament. So fished 3 days. Fourth day, he spent Championship Sunday cleaning up, the local area. Said, while he was fishing, he couldn't believe how much trash was left there, and really cool. Pretty freaking awesome. And speaking of pretty freaking awesome, this show, this is the greatest podcast in fishing. Well, no, it's not even close, but people are tired of me making fun of it and saying it sucks. So I'm taking a whole new direction. We are the greatest podcast in fishing, maybe. But if we're not, our guest this week is definitely the host of one of the greatest podcasts in fishing and probably one of the most unique. I think one of the things that's coolest about this guy is his relationship with his boys. You know what I mean? All the people he grew up with, Brian the Carpenter, Dave, all those guys, it's so cool to see that environment. He took all his buddies from high school and everything, and they've made this together with Pete and everybody involved. It's just cool. It's a cool environment. It's cool to see, and it's rare, really, when you think about it. It's far too often we're used to the exact opposite. People make it and they don't help people. So I think it's awesome. I've always tried to help people as much as possible, but you don't get the opportunity to help your buddies from high school. They just don't. It's just not something that happens for all of us. You know what I mean? My buddies from high school don't even care about fishing for the most part. So it's just a really cool setup. And obviously, if you're not aware, our guest this week, and this a little different, I told him I was going to book him for 10, 15 minutes, just a quick talk. And we ended up talking for a long time. So we're only going to have one guest this week. But when you have this guy, you only have one guest. Because we got the one and only freaking Mike Iaconelli. That's right. Ike and this conversation is about as real as it gets. Mike Iaconelli, I've decided to do something incredibly original. I am the king of originality, and I'm starting a fishing podcast. I don't know if you've heard, but it's breaking. It's going to be a new big thing in fishing. What do you think?
The idea of a podcast is a novel idea. I think it's unique. I think it's different. There's not a lot of people in the fishing industry doing it, so I'm excited for it. Good job, Dave.
I don't even know what I'm doing. To be totally honest, if I'm just laying it out there, I'm really only here just because I did a really cool podcast with another guy, and he didn't want to do it anymore, and my ego wouldn't let me not do a podcast. So that's why I'm freaking stuck doing a podcast.
I'm glad you're doing a podcast. I'm glad you're doing a podcast because, I've been engaged in a podcast for almost 7 years now. and we still have no idea what we're doing. So we need good quality podcasts out there because Ike Live is not one of them.
Whatever. You're so full of crap. I mean, really, you don't feel that though. Like, I know you say that in interviews, Ike, but this is the only chance this crappy podcast has a shot to be real is by being real. But you don't feel that. I know you feel. Where do you think your podcast ranks in the fishing world?
No, honestly, I do feel like it's really not that good. But in saying that, I love it. Because we've talked about this before. The reason I love my podcast, this is going to sound pathetic, but I'm going to give it to you, is it's a great excuse for me to hang with my friends who most of them I've known since grade school, literally. It's a great excuse to hang with my friends and drink beer and catch up with them. And, life is crazy. Life's busy. You get torn in different directions. And it gives us sort of an excuse. Like I said, it sounds bad, but it gives us an excuse to hang out. And, I love those guys. Those guys have been my friends since I was, smaller than Vegas. So it's been fun. It's been fun. And, we've had an opportunity to turn it into somewhat of a business and people enjoy it. People enjoy it and it kills time for people. I hear from so many people that, they're listening to it at work or driving or on the way to a derby. And that's cool, man. If it's entertaining people. There's something special about that, and back when I was in high school, I was a DJ. I started DJing back when DJing was actual DJing with metal tables and
didn't just press buttons.
Yes. Pieces of plastic called records for all you young people. Yes. Records, discs, plastic discs. But, I love that. I love DJing more because I like music, but more because I like entertaining people. And all these years later, I still do, and I know you do too. I know you feel the same way.
Yeah. And it's weird you say the thing about catching up with people, because to be honest, this kind of new evolution for the podcast, that's actually the biggest thing. I literally just said it to Sarah a few minutes ago. I'm like, the coolest thing about this is because I'll be honest, there's a freaking playoff hockey game happening right now. I was bitching about doing this a few minutes ago, and I know you probably were too. Let's be totally honest. I mean, you're like, I can't believe I agreed to do this, but I already am like, it's cool that we're taking the time to catch up because it's just the nature of our business. And, when we used to see each other every other week, it was one, but even then these conversations are so rare. You know what I mean? Where you're,
I do know what you mean. And we've run into each other a bunch in the last few years. And I've said it to you personally, but I'll say it again to you via this Zoom machine. I do miss you, Dave. I do. I miss you. I miss seeing you through the ups and downs as a tournament competitor. I'm sort of removed from it a little bit now, and I'm smiling about it because, as a tournament competitor, you're through the ringer of super highs and super lows, and you've got to sort of buckle up and deal with that in the public, and we've been through a lot of that together, and now I get to kind of look at it and chuckle, and I love Bassmaster Live. I watch Bassmaster Live nonstop. I watch MLF the live there. I'm just a live junkie. I love it. I've heard.
Which one do you think's better?
I think I'd be honest now because I got, here's the great thing, I feel like I've had handcuffs removed from me, honestly. And I've always been pretty open. I've tried to be as open as possible, but I can be even more open now. And I do like the Bassmaster Live a little better than MLF Live. I really do. I like them both, but I do like the Bassmaster Live a little bit better. But it's been fun.
Sorry to be a dick, by the way.
No, that's
people
okay.
Won't tune into this crap. Let's be honest. Okay. If there's no negative,
no, it doesn't matter. Nothing matters anymore, so it's all good. But I get to watch it now, and all the leagues. I watch, that emotional roller coaster, and there's things I miss about it, and there's things I don't. So I get to watch it now and kind of laugh and chuckle and be like, "Yep, I remember that. Oh yeah, that sucks. Oh, that's the best. Oh yeah, that's not so good." And I watch it removed from it now, which is interesting.
You went back and fished a tournament at MLF and a bass tournament, one of the opens. Was it different going back, or was it literally just like, I'm back?
And again, I'm just being honest with you. At the MLF event, it felt kind of static. It felt like I'm just back, and a lot of some of the things why I left were creeping in at that event again. But when I went back to the Bass Open on the James, man, it was very refreshing for me to get back to a tournament format that was, more ingrained in the roots of who I am as a fisherman. And it was nice. Another thing is going to
super unprofessional. I'm sorry, I'm getting
that's okay. I'm throwing a lot of stuff out here that's going to sound terrible, but it felt good swinging fish over the gun and letting them flop on the floor. It felt really, really good. It felt good throwing them in a live well. It felt great to be on a stage with people and holding fish and talking to people and signing autographs. That stuff was missing for me in the other league that I fished. And it did feel really refreshing to go back. At the same time, a lot of the things I'm getting to do now that I'm not a top full-time touring pro, Dave, I am enjoying the hell out of it. I had the time at home with my kids, all 4 of my kids, the things I'm getting to see and do, and some of the new opportunities that are popping up. I am relishing in these moments right now. So I am in no rush to get back to full-time competition. But I did enjoy myself at the last event at Bass, the Bass Open.
Yeah, watching you guys as a family, there's a little part of me that's a little bit jealous, because I have always said, now that my kids are, 16 and 14, I've always kind of said, man, this bass thing, it should be coming along now. You know what I mean? And because I missed what you guys are experiencing now with young kids, and it's really cool to watch. Yeah. But I do want to talk to you about something a word you used, refreshing, to go back. And it doesn't matter what name it is, whether it's Polnick, Swindle, Hackney, Christie, any of the guys who requalified and made it back.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I've talked about it behind the scenes with a few people, but you're one of the only guys that will give me a true, honest answer on it. But I really think when you watch those guys fish, when they come back, it's almost like I can get back to doing what I was always meant to do and what I always trained to do. It's almost like everything else was weighing on them, and it's almost a freeing, refreshing feeling that I get. Is that real or is that nuts?
That's real. Very, very refreshing. Very back to my roots, back to why I love the tournament fishing. And I don't want to say that knocking MLF, because I think and I know you're not either, but they've got a great premise and they've got great anglers over there, but something was definitely missing over there, and it felt good to come back and those things that were missing. It felt good to engage, in those things again. Here's the thing. Since I'm being honest, I'll just keep going. The whole MLF thing happened, as a sort of a rebuttal to say, hey, the anglers need to be a little more in control of their own destiny, and we need to get away from some of this stuff that's gone on. And that's why it happened. All these years later, did it fix those problems? I don't know if it did. I don't think that's a perfect world over there. And either is Bass. I think Bass still has its problems. MLF has its problems. And I don't know that they'll ever go away. So, but that aside, it felt really nice to put fish in the well and greet people and meet people and see people smiling and laughing. And, I miss that. And Corona amplified all that. No matter, if you were fishing bass or MLF or FLW or whatever, it amplified the lack of that interaction. And, it's coming back. Things are getting back to normal. To go fish a bass event again, everything felt good. It felt really nice. I can tell you I'm excited. I've got 2 more Northern Opens on my schedule. I've got 3 Northern Toyota Series on my schedule. I get to be within a 5-hour drive of my house and all these events. So if I bomb and don't make the 3rd day, I can drive home that night and be in my own bed. So, this is a really cool season for me because I'm sort of got the step away, but I'm fulfilling my competitive spirit a little bit and still getting to engage in tournament fishing. So it's been a great year. I think the rest of the year is going to be good too.
Are fans more important to you? And when I'm asking all these questions, totally, I appreciate you having my back, but even the MLF thing, that's not, to me, what they're doing being different is the right thing to do. I mean, if you're going to compete with bass, you better not try to compete. If you're going to, the XFL better try to be the XFL. If they try to be the NFL, it'll never work. Right. And so I don't disagree with what they're doing, but I just know that there's something that we all underestimated, I think. You know what I mean? And and it's taken me a while to kind of look at it and be like, man, I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan. I'm a huge Chiefs fan. And Patrick Mahomes leaves tomorrow to go compete in a bigger league. I'm still a Chiefs fan. Yeah. And I was a Bassmaster Classic fan before Mike Iaconelli, before Kevin Van Dam. You know what I mean? So I think we all underestimated that. And you're right. You hit it dead on. And I think for the generation of anglers that grew up with bass, whether you're a fan or a participant, it's ingrained in what tournament fishing is. It's BASS, but that may change too. Yeah.
There are a whole group of young people that love the MLF format, and the young guys over there, and believe it or not, there are people that watch MLF that aren't fans of bass, and so I know, I can't understand that, but I think for me, you mentioned some names. I think for me and Polinick and Swindle and Hackney and those guys, I think it wasn't right for them, and it didn't feel right. Yeah. And I think they wanted to get back to their roots, and it felt more right for them and their history in the sport. So the years will tell. It'll be interesting to see how it evolves in the next 5, 10, 15 years, 20 years. I hope I'm around that long to get to see it evolve. And I said this before, I'm going to say it again. That split that happened, in the long run, if we were to 20 years from now rewind this podcast, everybody would be like, Mike was effing right. He's a genius. And I believe I am right. I think it was a good thing that happened. I think it put into motion some things that helped grow the sport, that helped change the outlook of some of the owners and people that run the organizations, right? So I think there was a positive.
Everybody. It had to affect literally every facet of the industry. You know what I mean? Like, it did affect everything. I think the way even sponsors deal with it's changed everything. Some of it good, some of it bad. But I mean, there's reasons it happened. I mean, I don't think anybody can deny that. Are fans more important to you than other pros? That's where I was going with that long-winded, weird diatribe I just did. But what I mean is, other sports terms, you're freaking Conor McGregor, dude. You feed off the fans. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, there's other people that, and this is not a knock on him, but the most obvious example would be a Cliff Pace, a great angler, but I don't think Cliff Pace cares if anyone shows up for take-up in the morning. Right. And that's not an insult. He's focused on, but are fans more important to you?
I don't want to say, I don't want to say more important, because I think fans are important. A lot of every pro, you got to have a respect, and, they have to be important to your platform. But for me, man, this has been I've been in it a long time, and the fans have really kept me going through the years from so many levels. Like, emotionally, dude, one Conor McGregor line, Fuking. I said Fuking. I can say that because it's Fuking.
You say whatever you want.
100% they have got me through emotionally through really tough times in my career. And, they've stuck with me. And, I don't know. It's almost like the fans for me have kept me in this sport as long as I have. And there's a respect for that. And, one of the big things, and I've said this before, I've mentioned this before, but I am like you, like Zona, like a lot of the bass heads. I am the biggest fan of the sport you'll ever find.
Yeah.
Dude, I've got every Bassmaster magazine I've ever owned since 1983. I'm talking about paper. I still have them. I still get them. I don't throw them away. I have them in boxes, all those old issues. I'm the biggest bass fan you'd ever want to meet. I went to seminars as a kid. I went to the old Bass University classes. I watched pros, and there was something about when I was a kid, the pros that would spend time with you. I had some amazing experiences in my youth with, Guido Hibden, Jimmy Houston. I think everybody has a good Jimmy Houston story at shows. Guys that, and I would watch them and I'd sit back and I always said, God, if this ever happens to me, if I ever, pull this thing together, that's who I want to be, and I watched other pros. I won't mention those guys. I watch other historical pros that, and I don't even want to say they were being rude, but they were, they didn't feel comfortable around the fans. They just want, and I get that. Everybody's different, man. But I gained a big respect. And, early on when I got that opportunity where people wanted to talk to me, I was like, what in the hell? People want to, they wait for me to boat ramp. It's dark after practice. They wait for 3 hours. Are you kidding me? And that to me was always for me and the brand, it was the single most important thing I could do. I don't want to throw sponsors under the bus, but the fans are the most important thing. They are the most important thing, and when I've had my bad moments in my career, the fans were there. And when I had my great moments, the fans were there. And, I don't know. They're just they're an integral part of my fishing career. And when that part was sort of removed at the events level, it definitely it didn't feel right for me. When Corona hit and all that went away, it was crushing.
Yeah.
And these things are great, and we do lives and we get to interact with fans, but to physically be there and connect with someone that takes time out of their life and they want to speak to you, that's awesome. That's flattering. It's humbling. It's what I love about the sport. And, I hope that never changes, for me, no matter what my career path in fishing, wherever it takes me, I want to keep that connection with the fans. It's been amazing, and I tell you this, you were there for it. This happens in every walk of life, but when something happens, that's the best it could ever be. You almost never want it to happen again. And you're satisfied to a certain level. I've had that happen, with the Classic, with AOY. Not that I wouldn't want to win more. I would, but after it happens, that moment, you can't duplicate it, right? It's like a dream come true, right? That my win in Philadelphia for me was the biggest thing that ever happened in my career, because it really brought my career full circle. And the connection with the fans there was the best. You could just never duplicate it. And I've had people say, oh man, don't you want these leagues to come back to Philly? And wouldn't you like another chance? And I think about it, like, that'd be cool. But then I'm like, nah, man, I want to just close my eyes and remember that one. And I don't want to do that one again, Yeah.
Yeah. And the crazy thing, and I don't even know if you remember this, you told me that before you ever won it. The morning of takeoff, me and you, and we, our interactions, they're so weird. It could be you pulling out a day old sandwich out of your rain jacket. You know what I mean? It's Jimmy John's or whatever you're eating. Yeah. But every once in a while we have these serious moments. And I remember talking to you because to be honest, outside of Jerry McInnes and the production crew, and Jerry was a big pusher behind that being here. You know what I mean? He was a big believer in that.
Yeah.
But pretty much all the anglers hated it.
Oh yeah. It reeked for them. They were in a fishery that was pretty bad. It wasn't as bad as some of them, some of the Ohio River tournaments, and it wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. But the environment freaked them out. I got stories, half our bass guys, especially the older guys from the South, they all carry anyway, right? So, they're holding their pistols as they're driving down the road. Come on, guys. It's not that bad. I mean, strange things happen in Philadelphia, but it's not that bad. But it was a different kind of event. But, again, now that I'm sort of removed from it, I like those different events. Like I look at the Sabine, and man, the Sabine is torture like the Delaware was, right? It's a brutal tournament. But as a fan, when I got to watch it this year, intriguing. And what a great storylines and elements that you didn't have in Guntersville. Guntersville was awesome. It was a blowout. So was Fork. That's great. But
Guntersville sucked, I think. It was an awesome tournament, but really in May, you go to Guntersville. That's the one in the calendar. You're like, it's going to be lights out.
Right.
It was, you know what I mean? And it was cool that it was a blowout victory, but just the way it kind of happened, it was unremarkable in a way. It was so remarkable, but unremarkable to me, where he was doing the same thing as everybody else. He was just catching bigger fish. Like there was no secret spot. There was, you know what I mean? There's always like that element, but sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, but I think the mix of having those challenging events is good. It's good for the sport. As a participant, I know sometimes it's hard to swallow it, but as a fan, I liked watching that Sabine. I like watching those weird, tough ones. They're good. It's good to have in the mix.
Yeah. So that morning at Philly, when we had that conversation, though, I remember wondering, because I said to you, I'm trying to convince, you're like, we're never coming back here. And because I was like, we need to have this is freaking WrestleMania. I love it. I mean, it was the second most excited person at that event was me. Trust me. I was loving every minute of it. And I remember thinking, we got to come back here. And you're like, we're never coming back. And I'm like, how can I say that with everything? And I really thought about it that afternoon when everything went down, because I was like, man, he's probably right, but we need to enjoy this. And what did that feel like? You know what I mean? Like to see it from the outside, but to really be that guy. What was that, Ike? Like what?
It was unreal. I mean, there's a couple parts to it. I mean, we got to see it with Wes, this year. He won on his home turf. So there's that.
But not like that, dude.
Yeah, not like that.
There's no fans like those people. I mean, let's be honest. When you bring up the fact that they threw snowballs at Santa, they cheer. They celebrate. Yes, we did that.
The fans, Philadelphia fans are passionate and emotional and super high, super lows. Yeah. And they're me. They are me. I remember in that tournament, like now, I didn't shave. I was, I had so much, everything was focused on winning this event. And it was almost like more that I wanted to win for Philly and the Northeast and the anglers that, that are like me. And the great thing was a lot of them came out, to say, hey, we're that same fisherman where we get pissed off and we curse. And when we catch a 10.5 pound bag, we're super excited. We call a 2-pounder a giant. It was a really amazing connection. Not that I don't have connection with fans all over, but there it was incredibly just amazing connection. And the full circle thing was real though for me. And I got emotional and I teared up. I didn't, I was sort of crying on the inside, but something happened. I don't know if I ever told this story. Something happened on the last day. I look back on it and I say, and I almost think, why the hell did I do that? And I don't know why I did it. But it was the most unbelievable, surreal thing that ever happened in my life, in my fishing career. So it was the last day, and it was about 3/4 through the day. And, one of the beauties of bass, you have no idea. You can guess and you have feelings on whether you're doing good or bad, or, and I had a limit at that point, but I had a real small one, another small one. And 3/4 of the way through the day, like, I took this gamble and I ran way up the Schuylkill River. And Dave, you've been in the Schuylkill. The Schuylkill is can be a stingy place, but I ran way up the Schuylkill through these winding turns and, bridge pilings, and you never know what's floating down the Schuylkill. And I took this chance to fish this one spot, went way up, flipped this one spot, and then came all the way back. Never got a bite and continued my day, ended up culling just one more time. But that area that I fished was within sight of one of the first places I ever fished as a kid. And I've got a picture from my uncle of me and my grandfather fishing basically a wall below the art museum in the Schuylkill River at Philadelphia. And I'm probably 3 or 4 years old. And it was just this thing that drew me up there to try this spot. And, like, looking back on it, that's sort of what that tournament meant to me. It was the place I learned how to fish, that my uncle and my grandfather and my grandfather's father fished. And, all these years later, I got to go back and win an event there. And it just felt like if I was to never, ever fish another tournament the rest of my life, I'm happy. This was my exclamation point, and if, and again, I don't know, I sit here talking, I still don't know what I'm doing the next 5-10 years, but if I never go back, Dave, it'll never get any better than that for me. I promise. And I'll prove it to you. Like, I'm in my office, got a lot of cool memorabilia. There's an AOI, a classic, a Federation National title. I'm so proud of those, but there's the Delaware trophy there. Yeah. And there's that picture. Let me see if I can give you a close up for the fans listening to the audio version of this. It's not going to mean anything, but that right there, that made my fishing career. It will never get better than that, Dave. Never.
It was an amazing moment. And I think I'm going to let you go because I've so many directions. I really would love to ask you about so many different things. Like, I feel like we've hardly even touched anything because, your freaking life is an onions. There's so many layers to.
We just started getting off on all these other tangents.
Yeah, it's great. But I'm going to let you go for a specific reason because I know you want to get back to your family. And Ike, I'm going to tell you right now, all crap aside, it wasn't that long ago that, I don't want to sound like a jerk, but you were sending cryptic texts, answering angry stuff on social media, and you were in a very dark place. But to see how happy you literally are at everything you're doing right now is, it's pretty amazing and inspiring. So congrats on that.
I appreciate that. And it's easy to get caught up in politics and all that stuff. And, at times in the past, even more recently, I sort of had days where I was not happy and depressed and sad. And, sometimes you have to sort of snap yourself out of it. And, real life does that for me, and your children do it, and your family will do it. And, life stories and meeting people and, people passing away. And then, it sort of snaps you out of it and says, man, it's not that bad, and I've dealt with that my whole life, since I was a kid, little bouts of depression, but, you can snap out of it. And I really feel like I've snapped out of it, got a great family support unit, great friend support unit. And I am happier than I've ever been, Dave. I appreciate that.
You can see that. Do you think that, and I know I said I was letting you go, but just since do you think that's something synonymous with people like us? Like people that are just, it's over the top, it's so hard to run at Swindle, people like that. It's so hard to run at that level. I think.
Oh yeah.
It's a thing that nobody ever says, but it's the truth. It
is. I think, your personality definitely dictates the direction your emotions go. And I've always been emotional. Like I said, it's great because there's super highs and there's super lows. And, even after all these years, it's sometimes tough to deal with the highs and lows, especially the lows. But, for me, it was always hard to just, it's hard to be a guy and admit those things. It's hard to say I'm depressed, and people look at you and say, that's ridiculous. He's got a house and kids and he fishes for a living. It's fun. How's he it's hard for people to understand. And I get it. I understand that, for sure. But they're real emotions, and, and dealing with them is the hardest part. You tend to want to shut down and run away, but when you deal with them, it's a better thing. But I'm human, I make mistakes. I'm going to continue to make mistakes. And, you look at social media, and I know you get this too, Dave. And, there's 1,000 positive comments on something you post, and
it's not the one you remember.
15 negatives trying to tear you down. And, it does wear on you,
Yeah.
Brian the Carpenter attacks every one of them, but I try to take it all in stride. And like I said, when I snap out of it, I realize that, man, I got a really amazing life. I've had an amazing career, got amazing friends, amazing opportunities. This podcast tonight, talking to you, I got it good, man. I got it good.
Yeah, you do, and I think we as an industry have it good. Like when you think of all the things that, you have to be realistic too. Like to say, okay, he's got a house and he's won a trophy and things like that. None of those things ever make anybody happy. You know what I mean? You also deal with a lot of things that nobody in the past ever dealt with. The access of those 50 people being able to say whatever they want and as hurtful as they want to be. But the real you has always been what has shined through in this industry, highs or lows. It's, I think the only part of the IKE evolution that I was never a fan of was the geeky glasses and the vest. Once you ditch that, why? Last question, and I'm going to leave you. Why did you wear that stuff? Were you trying to conform?
Yes. I'll get yes and the time of it. So I'll give you two things. Yes, and I've actually admitted this. I've admitted this before. I'll admit it again. I'm not proud to admit it. In the beginning, I definitely tried to fit in. When I say in the beginning, my error of trying to qualify for the top four, because you're you don't know what the hell you're doing, and you're sort of lost, and you do try to fit in. So I think there was a little bit of that. And I think, as I settled in a little, I think by my first couple wins, you start to settle in, you start to realize things were happening in my life where I said, oh, this is bullshit. I'm sick of this, so I did try to conform a little bit, but a little bit of it was the time too. You got to look back, and dude, that vest, that shit was cool back in the day. I'm talking about, dude, I was watching Mickey.
It really
Bruce.
was. I remember.
I was watching Mickey Bruce up on the Thousand Islands, pitching that Stanley jig with that Ranger vest. Oh, bro, that was the bomb. Tom Mann Jr., come on, man. Are you kidding me? With that Ranger vest with the patches, Denny Bauer flipping them docks with a tube.
Oh, woo! Satin under jacket, the satin under jacket. Oh, wow.
And even glasses were cool. Maybe not the glasses I had, but sunglasses were cool. Like Ken Cook had cool glasses. They were more like goggly glasses.
Yeah.
Chris Zaldane right now has cool sunglasses.
Yeah.
I had cool glasses, but just to like me and maybe like one of.
Hey, well, you're right. Because if you put comparatively, and through the magic of this show, we'll do it. If you put comparatively of what Kevin looked like at the time versus what you looked, you maybe did look very, very cool.
Hey, yeah.
But it wasn't his fault that the hat didn't fit his head.
I love them old pictures. Oh, they make me laugh.
Oh,
man.
good. So good.
It is good. I love it.
Mike Iaconelli, you are good, and hanging out with you has been very, very good. I don't know if we accomplished anything here tonight, but we accomplished having a good time, and I thank you for that.
Thank you, Dave, for having me on. It's always fun hanging out with you, whether it's a podcast or at the bar, or maybe on the tournament stage sometime in the future, Dave. You don't know.
Always with the tease. Always with the tease.
Maybe. The Opens. I'm 17th in points right now. I don't know.
If you qualify, will you come back? Yes or no? Get really mad at me and hang up. It'll be great quick debate.
If I qualify through the Opens, I will write the date down on when they need an answer. You know, because I know from the past, God. You know.
How many specials? How many specials in between? If you qualify, I just want to. How many Ike Live specials will there be? The reveal. It's coming down to the decision. LeBron James will call you up and be like, "Bro, enough."
Yeah, we're gonna do an Ike Live the night before the deadline date when I have to give an answer if I qualify. We'll do a 7-hour long podcast.
Can I be there I'll just sit in the corner creepily, and I'll wear one of those old-fashioned press hats.
Yeah.
Iaconelli is approaching the microphone. Iaconelli may make a decision.
Yeah, you can. I would love for you to do that. That'd be
all
great.
Right. All right. Go tuck those kids in, and if they're not already in bed. But thank you very much. That was a weird way to end this podcast. I mean, I tried to sound nice there. You see? Just...
Thank you, Dave.
Hi to the family for me, Ike.
I will. You too. Right. And I hope they let you out of Canada soon.
Hey, they have. They've recently been let out. I found a loophole. Oh, that's a whole other story. Okay. But we're revealing your secrets tonight. Goodbye.
Right. Bye, Dave.
Bye-bye. And that right there, that's about as real as it gets. I mean, thank you, Mike Iaconelli. I mean, not just for being a guest on this show, but also for bringing it, you know, for being as real as he was here. And the guys, that's kind of what I'm hoping this podcast can become. I mean, there's a lot of great fishing podcasts out there. There's a lot of great podcasts that bring you so many different things. All we're going to be is a podcast that brings you the real conversations that I have with real friends that I've known for years in the industry. And, I mean, I haven't watched it back. A lot of times you watch things and you're like, well, that wasn't near as good as I thought. But I think that the things that Iaconelli said and just as open and honest as that conversation was, it's what I want this show to be. I mean, it's not about having 5 guests, 10 guests, 2 guests, 1 guest, half a guest. It's about having real conversations and being real. And to be honest, I kind of alluded to it. I mean, this was never a goal of mine. I was happy doing the previous podcast that we did, but that didn't work out. And I'm way too competitive to say, okay, well, now I'm not going to do a podcast. So that's what this has evolved into. But it's also something I love doing. I mean, I'm thankful that this podcast gives me the opportunity to have real conversations like I just did with Ike, because let's be honest, without this platform, that doesn't happen. You don't call a friend up and say, talk to me about these topics. I mean, you put yourself in those situations. It's just not something. I mean, I call Ike and we can have conversations about just like anybody else, like how's your family? How's going on with this? What's changing with that? What do you think of this? But it's never what we just had. And I'm thankful for that. So that's what this podcast is about. It's about real conversations with real people and no bull crap. I mean, if you got to chase crazy clickbait and titles to be successful on this platform, so be it. We will freaking do that. But at the bottom line, it's just going to be real conversations with real people. And I really appreciate you guys for watching and tuning in, week after week. This is a big freaking week. I mean, this is the week in between two holidays. It was May 2-4, Victoria Day in Canada this past weekend, and Memorial Day in the U.S. coming up. So hopefully this hump day is a good one. I mean, hey, I'll get you. I mean, hump day's less. I mean, I guess since it's a short week for everyone. I mean, it was a holiday in Canada on Monday, and it's a holiday, I believe, in the U.S. on Friday. So hump day is like, this podcast came to you sooner. So for just that very reason, please give it a like, subscribe, and review it on the pod streaming things and all that stuff. And eventually, I will stop begging you to do things like that. But I will never stop working to bring you a real and different perspective on the... Oh, God, I got nothing to say. We're done, I guess, This is the part where I'm rambling and wondering why I didn't finish a few minutes ago. I mean, and so are you. I mean, so... Bye.
Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, because Bob Cobb of the Bassmasters told you to. You hear?